All right, in this module, we'll be exploring the pandas panel object. Now, in the past, we've looked into the series, which is a one-dimensional data structure, and we've spent plenty of time with the data frame, which is a two-dimensional tabular data structure in pandas. And predictably, the next step is the panel, which is the three-dimensional data structure. And all that means is that we're now going to need 3 points of reference in order to locate any specific value within our pandas panel object. Now, the way that you can think of a panel is basically like a box or a container of data frames. So if you took 5 different data frames together and packed them into a box, that's basically what a panel is. So in order to extract any specific value, we're going to need 3 points of reference. We're going to need to know what the data frame is that we want to pull out of that box, and then within that data frame, we're going to need to know the row and the column intersection in order to extract any specific value. Now, because we've kind of spent some time apart from when we talked about this concept of dimensions previously, I just wanted to offer a quick review of just what we mean when we talk about dimensions. And I wanted to do it through a little bit more of a lighthearted example instead of keeping everything here in the code. So let's take a look at this image I have right here, and it's just a basic soda machine, the kind you might see in any office or public building worldwide. So we have here 5 options for 5 sodas. And if you think about the pandas object that most closely represents this, it'd be a series object. We basically have one column of data, one column of choices. And now let's pretend somebody is coming to me and they want to communicate what soda they'd like me to buy for them. We basically need 1 point of reference from them in order to figure out what soda they want. They can say something like, I want the soda in row position 2, in which case we know that they mean Pepsi. Or they can say, I want the soda in row position 5, and in that case we know that they mean Sprite. Granted, we have to have a common agreement on whether we're starting the count at 0 or 1, but as soon as we have that agreed upon, that 1 point of reference, the row number or even the row label, is enough to tell us what they mean. Now compare that to another type of soda machine we might see, which is something like this. This is closer to what a data frame looks like because we have rows and we have columns. Now imagine that that same person comes to us and they say, well, I want the soda in row 2. That one piece of information, that 1 point of reference, is not enough to tell us what specific soda they're referring to. Because if we look at row 2 here, we have 9 different choices that we can choose from. Similarly, if they tell us, well, I want the soda in column number 5, there's different options in column number 5. That one specific point by itself doesn't communicate exactly what soda they're referring to, or in our case, what value within the data frame. It's only at the point that they provide 2 points of reference, the row and the column. It's only at the point where they say, I want the soda at row 2 and column 5, that we know exactly what it is that they're referring to. So because we need 2 points of information, this is a two-dimensional object. A data frame is a two-dimensional object. You need to give the row label and the column label, or the row position and the column position, to extract any specific value. A panel, just think of it as one step up, one step greater. 3 points of reference are needed in a panel to extract any one piece of information, any value from within that object. So we'll dive into this in much greater detail in the next couple lessons, but keep that in mind as we start our exploration here. So let's begin by creating a new Jupyter notebook. I'm going to click New here and select my Conda root environment. And let's give this notebook a name of Panels. And of course, we're going to have to import pandas as PD. And we're also going to be using our pandas data reader library that we introduced a little while ago. And we're going to use that once again to pull financial stock information for a few companies. So I'm going to import that code. I'm also going to press Escape and hold the B button to create some cells below for us to work with. Now the last time we did this, we basically provided a string of a single stock name, and we used that to tell the data reader library to load a data frame of information for that stock. What we're now going to do is load that information for multiple companies, and the resulting object that is going to return back to us will be, in fact, a pandas panel. This is just the easiest way that we can generate it from scratch. So I'm going to create a companies list, and it's going to store 5 strings, basically 5 stock names for 5 popular tech companies. So I'm going to do Microsoft, which is MSFT, Google, which is GOOG, Apple, which is AAPL, Yahoo, which is YHOO, and Amazon, which is AMZN. So here we have just a list of 5 strings. We're once again going to call our data module, which we imported right here, and within it we have that data reader method. And I'm going to open my parentheses and press Shift-Tab to get a quick review of our parameters here. So we have name, which is expecting the company, or in this case, list of companies that we want to pull information for. We have the data source, which is just either Google Finance or Yahoo Finance, or there's a couple other options, but we're basically going to stick strictly with Google. And then, of course, the start and end parameters, which specify the beginning and end of the date range. So for the name parameter, I'm going to give it a companies list. For the data source parameter, I'm going to do Google, which is Google Finance. And keep in mind that has to be lowercase, and don't confuse this with this Google right here. This up here means we want to pull information for Google. This data source parameter right here means that we're pulling it from Google Finance. So let's put a line break there for simplicity. And I'm going to put our beginning of our date range at the beginning of 2010, January 1st, 2010. And the end will be the end of 2016, which is December 31st. So I'm going to press Shift-Enter to execute. And as you'll see when it loads the final result, it's going to be a little bit underwhelming. So we are going to get a panel object back, but we're just going to get these 5 lines. Now, unlike a series or a data frame, it's not going to output any specific data to us, which is why it's kind of a bit confusing and underwhelming. We're kind of saying, well, what is this? But in fact, it is returning to us a panel object. So this is basically a box of data frames. And right here, right below the part where it actually tells us it's a panel, it's just basically summarizing the dimensions and axes of the panel. And we'll dive into exactly what all this means in the very next lesson. But for now, just realize that if you're getting this back, then you're all set. You're properly getting a panel object, and then you could assign this code to a variable that's going to store the panel for you. So I'm going to store it in a variable called P, just to keep it really simple, and then just output P right below the cell to confirm that it is in fact pointing to that new panel that we've received from Google Finance. So this will be our import code at the start of each lesson. This is going to ensure once again that our data is in a consistent shape at the beginning of each lesson. And once again, just keep in mind as you're proceeding that a panel is really just a box of data frames. It's just a 3-dimensional object. And in the next lesson, we'll start diving into how a panel object is structured internally. And afterwards, we'll proceed into how we can actually start extracting specific data frames and specific values from the panel. So I look forward to another great module, and I will see you in the very next lesson.